Do you want to play Blue Eyes without Primite? Then the Fiendsmith might be to your liking. For the monsters, I play 2 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon. In a competitive environment for Yu-Gi-Oh! 2025, you have to play 2 copies of Blue Eyes. But the reason why we're not playing just 1 copy is because of Bestials. Next I play 3 copies of Maiden in White. Maiden of White is a cost to send her from the hand or field to the grave to place a True Light. And since she's a cost, she triggers Necro Equip. So when we go for a Fiendsmith line and we make a Necro Equip to make a Caesar, we can pitch Maiden to activate True Light and draw a free card. This is one of many synergies between the Blue Eyes and the Fiendsmith. We'll talk more about what you can do with the Fiendsmith and the Blue Eyes later in this profile. And for the best start in the deck, I play 3 copies of Sage with Eyes of Blue. In my Blue Eyes Invoked deck profile, I already discussed why Sage is such a good start in the Blue Eyes White Dragon deck. But particularly in this version when you can grab Maiden, pitch her and draw a card with Necro Equip. And if you at any point get interrupted in your combo, you can just pivot into the Fiendsmith. Because the only cards that lock you are Roar for the rest of the turn after you use its effect, and Spirit when he's face up on the field and not negated. So similar to a Promethean Princess, if they impermanence your Spirit, you can still link off into Moon. Or if they negate Roar with say an Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, you're still not locked. This makes it kinda difficult to hand trap this deck, because if they hand trap you early, you can just make Moon and go into the Fiendsmith. But if they wait, then you get to Spirit Dragon and the rest of your Blue Eyes cards, and their hand traps are less effective. Still, if you're playing into this deck and you have an infinite impermanence, I would use the Imperm on Sage to stop his effect. By showing off access to Maiden, which gives you True Light and the rest of your Blue Eyes cards, you stop the deck in its tracks. But say you do just Imperm the Sage, if they have either Wishes or Maiden, they just continue playing. And Fiendsmith Engraver is just another one of those cards which you can pair with your Sage. So when you get hand trapped, you can still end on a formidable field. Then for the Blue Eyes spells, I play 3 copies of Wishes for Eyes of Blue. Wishes also works with Necro Equip, allowing you to draw a card if you were to discard a card to use its effect. And since Wishes says discard 1 card, drawing Lure is usually not that bad. Resolving a Wishes pitching a Lure gives you the full Fiendsmith and Blue Eyes line by itself. I'm not using the second effect of Wishes to be able to equip a fusion monster, but also thanks to the Fiendsmith we have additional grind game in them, so we don't need to play this to make the Tyrant play. But Wishes is still a free off, seeing as it's one of the best starters in the deck and allows you to extend through hand traps. Then I play 1 copy of Roar. Roar is still good in this deck despite locking you into dragons, because you can just make your Fiendsmith plays into a Caesar first, and then use Roar to do your Blue Eyes plays. Additionally, when you do summon Caesar, you're able to negate cards like Nibiru the Primal Being or Bestials, so you can quite greedily play into them by just making the Caesar first with your Fiendsmith cards and then play without fear of Nibiru. As Nibiru and Bestials are so prevalent in this format, being able to make a Caesar, or at least threaten it and force them out, is very good. 1 Mausoleum of White. Mausoleum is the field spell that we search off of Spirit in the combo and gives us another normal summon for a level 1 Light Tuner. Thanks to Link Spider and the effect of Spirit, even our heavy non-engine hands, consisting of at least 2 copies of Effect Veiler, is full Fiendsmith combo, by making Veilers into Spirit getting you Mausoleum in White, and then tagging out the Spirit for a Blue Eyes, making a Link Spider an additional normal summon on Veiler allows you to go into Moon. And just doing that sequence of 2 hand traps is very good, not something the typical Fiendsmith deck can do. 1 True Light to search off of Maiden, and 1 Majesty of the White Dragons. I could see myself not playing Majesty in this deck, seeing as you already play the Fiendsmith Trap, which is a brick in and of itself. And your boards are usually very impressive if you get to full combo, so having the Majesty is not as vital. But there are some nice combos when you open just the Blue Eyes cards, and you go for a True Light without using its effect and you just pass on a Spirit. If they nib you on this, you can use True Light for Wishes and continue comboing. And if they don't have nib, you can go to end phase and use True Light to set Majesty. That way, having Majesty in your deck can be nice to play around Nibiru by making a suboptimal board by having counterplay to Nibiru if they were to drop it. Or if they don't Nibiru, seeing as True Light is a trap, it's essentially a quick effect. So you can set Majesty in the end phase after you leave main phase 1, thereby still passing on 2 interruptions and they cannot Nibiru you. So whilst this card is still in my main deck as of right now, it's definitely a card I take out when I go second post side. Then for the aforementioned Fiendsmith engine, I have 3 copies of Engraver, 1 Lacrima, 1 Lurie, 2 copies of Tract, and 1 Paradise. Now you may be thinking, why not just play the Primites? They are much better than the Fiendsmiths in the Blue Eyes deck. Well, Lordly Lode is at least $100 in the US, and the Barrel is also another $50 or so for a playset. While the Fiendsmith are not cheap, they're at least a little bit cheaper. And a lot of people probably have these cards already, seeing as they were released over half a year ago. So if you just have the Fiendsmith cards and you buy 3 Blue Eyes structure decks, you can build this deck. And it's probably the most competitive version of Blue Eyes without the Primites. Additionally, if Engraver were to get a reprint before Lordly Lode and Ether Barrel, it would naturally be way cheaper than the Primites, thus making the Fiendsmith Blue Eyes deck a budget deck. I will show some combos and talk about what you're aiming to do with the Fiendsmith and the Blue Eyes deck later on. And for the non-engine, I'm playing 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being. Nib is much better in this version than the Invoke deck, seeing as when you nib them, you get a monster on your field to make Moon with. Nib is also way better going first into whatever they're doing, because if they were to make a Caesar to play around the nib, you can send the Caesar with Paradise and still nib them, thus making it harder for them to check for nib. Then I play 3 copies of Mulcharmy Fuvalos. I think Fuvalos right now is the best Mulcharmy to main deck, seeing as it's just the most generic. And particularly against Malice, which just ends on a field that's way too hard to combat. They are forced to make a weaker field into Fuvalos, which you can more easily break. If you have sold your Fuvaloses because you know they're coming in Stampede, but you still own a Mulcharmy Meowl, seeing as it's not likely to get a reprint this early, you can definitely main deck Meowls over the Fuvalos. Meowls is still good against Fiendsmith and Mitsurugi Rise Seal as well as Malice, and also would get you a couple draws against the Blue Eyes full combo, so Meowls is still a very good Mulcharmy in this meta. And I know some of you who play locals don't have Fuvalos because it's getting a reprint in a couple months, while Meowls is more reprint safe. Then I play 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Ash Blossom has pretty much been a staple ever since it came out. There's just some formats in certain decks which chose not to play it, but particularly now with the Mulcharmies, it's very vital to negate them when you're going first, thus making Ash Blossom sort of an extender when you go first, being able to hand trap their hand trap. Then I'm playing 3 copies of Effect Veiler. Veiler is one of the best hand traps in this deck when you go first, because you can normal summon it under Mausoleum of White. So if you need the extender when you go first, you can just normal summon the Veiler. Seeing as the only normal summons you're playing are Lacrimal, Lurry, Sage, and Maiden, often you don't even utilize the normal summon from Mausoleum. Thus, if you have a Veiler or a Fuvalos or an Ash, you can use your regular normal summon on the hand traps, while Veiler works a little bit better since you can use it after your combo if you have the Mausoleum face up. Veiler also being a level 1 light tuner means it's searchable with Sage and Wishes, so it has extra synergy in this deck. Also, you can make Spirit with Veiler and a Blue Eyes in a pinch. Then I play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Imperm is just a very good hand trap, being able to use it on Detonator or Duo Drive, thus giving it a bit more flexibility than other hand traps. And then, since my main deck is comprised of mostly light monsters, I play 3 copies of Dominus Purge. There are some extra cards like Caesar in this deck, which conflict with Purge. But often when you go second, you don't even get to make a Caesar, so its confliction with Caesar and Chaos Angel are not that bad. But both Blue Eyes and Fiendsmith are light, so they work perfectly with Purge. And that's it for the main deck, 41 cards. For the extra deck, I'm playing 2 copies of Spirit with Eyes of Blue. You could play one of this, but I like 2 Spirit for certain grind games, where it could come up that you summon the second one. 1 Fiendsmith's Requiem. This is not a pure Fiendsmith deck, and if they bestial your Fiendsmith Requiem, it's not that bad. Thus, I don't think 2 copies is warranted, seeing as the extra space is quite limited. 1 copy of Link Spider. You can actually make this with Blue Eyes White Dragon since it's a normal monster. However, you cannot summon Blue Eyes from your hand, seeing as Link Spider can only summon level 4 or lower. But when you use Spirit to bring back a Blue Eyes White Dragon, you can link it off into Link Spider and then use Link Spider on another body to make Moon, seeing as Moon does require effect monsters. Also, if you were to get nibbed in your Blue Eyes combo, you can just make a Link Spider and then another monster go into Moon for the Fiendsmith. 1 copy of Sequence, since I am playing Desiree. 1 copy of Moon for the Fiendsmith. 1 copy of Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. Heretic Seal is a great end piece and allows you to bounce back your opponent's cards to the field. There is an option of playing Ancient Fairy Dragon to search Necro Valley, thus bouncing Necro Valley with Heretic Seal in their end phase if they were to pass, so you're not locked under it yourself. But in this version, I'm not playing those Floodgate field spells. 1 copy of DDD Wave High King Caesar. Caesar allows you to bait out either Bestials or Nibiru with your Fiendsmith cards before you enter into the Blue Eyes engine. Or if they don't have it, it's a great end piece to stop whatever they're doing. 1 copy of Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. I wanted both a target for Spirit to summon with its effect that provided an interruption, but also a synchro I can make with Engraver and a level 1 tuner. Then I'm playing 2 copies of Spirit. I'm not playing a Crimson Dragon combo, so 3 are not necessary, but 2 is still good, so you can make 1 on turn 1, and either make the second one turn 3 or through a Nibiru. But in this version you could potentially cut this card to 1 if you needed space for something else. Then I'm playing 1 copy of Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel is one of those cards that conflict with Dominus Purge, so you have to keep that in mind. But if you've not used Purge from the hand, you can very easily make a Chaos Angel with the Fiendsmith cards. As long as you could stop them from getting to do a drive, either with Mulcharmies or hand traps of your own, if you open an Engraver, and you can go Engraver, search Tract for Lurry, link Lurry into Requiem. Use Engraver's effect in the graveyard, putting back to Lurry, chain Requiem to summon a Lacrima reborn in the Engraver. Now you can make a Chaos Angel and banish their Detonator, without giving them an option to use Detonator to pop one of your monsters. And for the last synchro, I'm playing 1 copy of Ultimate Spirit Dragon. Just 1 copy of this is enough. There is a cool combo where you can make Spirit and you tag out into this, play around Bestials. This plays heavily into Nibiru, seeing as you use your Fiendsmiths after your Blue Eyes. But if you expect them not to have Nibiru, or you know that they have a Bestial in hand at least, it's a play you can do. And for the fusions, I'm playing 1 copy of Necro-equipped Princess. This is needed for the Caesar line and allows you to draw a card when you pitch with either Wishes or Maiden's effect. And 1 copy of Fiendsmith's Desiree, mainly to use with the trap, but you can also summon this card going second or turn 3. For the side deck, I'm playing 3 copies of Perulia and 3 copies of Meowth. Meowth is very good against Mitsurugi Raisil and Fiendsmith, as well as the Malice deck, while Perulia is very good against both Mitsurugi and Pure. What you're hoping from the Mulcharmies is to either draw enough hand traps or deter them from making the duo drive, thus not getting them to cross. When Raisil does not have a cross, it's much easier to break the board, as you can do the play I mentioned earlier to out the Detonator. Then I'm playing 1 copy of Call by the Grave, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 2 copies of Lightning Storm, 3 copies of Metal Tronus. This is another reason why Detonator is so easy for this deck to out, because if they have a Detonator on the field, you can activate Metal Tronus to summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon, negating the Detonator, and then you have a Blue Eyes for your combo. By negating the on-field Detonator, they can't get this to the graveyard easily, thus making their Eclipse Twins under it dead. And since you play Caesar, you can also use Metal Tronus to summon a Caesar and to banish it against Fiendsmith. And of course, if you're playing the mirror match, Metal Tronus is very good against that too. And for the last side deck card, I wanted something for going first, so I have the 1 Call by the Grave, which I can take out the Fabulous for, and then I have 2 copies of Solemn Strike. If you enjoy my content, make sure to also subscribe to my second channel, linked in the description box down below. There I'll be posting more personalized and exclusive content.